Hello everyone. Well, it's going to be a little bit of a departure from our norm today. There's so many restaurants here in Vegas, supposedly 5,000 plus. It's hard to make a decision where to go. Since we've begun this channel, our adventures have brought us to many restaurants, and we've reviewed everything from the mom and pop hidden gem to the well-known established buffets. But we've also experienced quite a number of duds. Places ranging from boring mediocrity to the downright horrible if not offensive. Today, we're going to review 5 places in order from bad to worse. As my mom used to say, if you have something bad to say, pull up a chair. Coming in at number 5, the Paletta Bar. As we walked past, the owner emerged from out of thin air and marshaled us in. We were as excited as schoolboys on Halloween night, as this place had all the makings of our kind of place. Visually appealing sweets, promising to satisfy our sugar cravings.
What's not to like?
And to watch them being made just adds to the experience. Imagine it's a late, stormy night and Dr. Frankenstein is hard at work in his laboratory, trying to animate a monstrously good and bizarre treat to be adored by both kids and adults. From his bubbling cold cauldron emerges these wondrous, colorful popsicles. Paletta Bar being a new place for sweets in town, and we being major sweet tooths, on paper, it was a match made in heaven. They have a host of flavors, some traditional, such as strawberry cheesecake and bubblegum, and some unusual, avocado, mango chili lime, and durian. And there's a reason some of these flavors are unusual for use in sweets. They don't lend themselves well to this genre.
It's because they don't work.
These frozen concoctions get covered in a wide variety of decorative toppings such as graham crackers, chocolate, cereal, and fresh fruit. They seem to be a cross between Asian and Mexican flavors, and therefore leads one to believe that they're meant to suit the Latin and Asian palate, which prefers foods not overly sweet. I had the chance to spend 6 months in Mexico City in my early adulthood. It was a wonderful experience, except for what they call sweets. I felt I was in exile, my sweet tooth punished for some unknown crime. I couldn't wait to get back to the US to again indulge in my favorite confections, ones that actually contained sugar. The Paletta Bar Yelpers all seem to be pleased that they have found a place where the sweets aren't overly sweet. To me, sweets should be sweet, so Paletta Bar is not my box of candy. They're beautiful to behold and mesmerizing to watch being made, but ultimately disappointing to the American palate. Coming in at number 4, Le Cave. This place takes on a magical vibe at night. It's such a romantic spot for wine and cheese, a view of the wind's beautiful pool, and a nicely decorated restaurant with a wall of greenery on display. Every Sunday, they have an all-you-can-eat brunch served butler style, meaning a server comes around periodically with a given item from the menu. This place gets very crowded. The food is attractive, the servers are classy, and very accommodating. Overall, a very nice beginning to the day. Unfortunately, despite this auspicious start, the food, at best, is passable, but nothing stands out. I can honestly say not one dish captured my imagination or even stayed in my thoughts within seconds after we left. There was no wow factor, and if not for the video we captured, I'd have a hard time remembering what we had at all. I don't think this place is a go-to destination spot if you're seeking a memorable Vegas brunch. They start you off with a blueberry muffin and this wonderfully flaky croissant. Who knew this was to be the highlight of the day? We then had the cream cheese pancakes with ube jam. Though these beautiful miniature pancakes are unique and a lovely purple color, they look like something from the pages of Alice in Wonderland or the magical frog toadstools of Willy Wonka. However, as with so many things at this brunch, they were bland and lacked any depth of complexity. I love tater tots, but these were nothing special. They were the quintessential potato tots, straight from the freezer to your plate. Also, the word loaded implies toppings heaped upon toppings, but there was none of that. A little sour cream, a smidgen of cheese, and a trifle of bacon. I felt like Oliver Twist.
Please, sir, may I have some more?
The short rib hash, one of the highlights of the brunch, yet oddly the least visually appealing. At first glance, one would think not much more than a dog's breakfast, but ultimately very tasty though so salty you couldn't eat too much of it without needing to drink a gallon of water. Tender, juicy, falling apart, yes, but oddly, also very oily and so overpowering you'd be hard-pressed to have more than one small dish. The New York Egg Sandwich. Well, kinda confusing. The classic New York Egg Sandwich should have bacon and not ham, but otherwise, this was another bland and highly forgettable dish. Then the truffle mushroom grits. If you're like me, you're thinking, yes, truffles! However, after just one taste, my inner voice kept repeating to me,
Where's the truffle?
I can taste a little mushroom, barely, and of course the grits. This dish is terribly underseasoned, not nearly enough melted cheese or heavy cream as well. I can almost hear the grits crying out for salt. Maybe the extra salt on the hash was meant for the grits, and they totally lack any truffle taste whatsoever. We love almost anything with truffles, but these, blander than bland. Very interesting. I don't really know what to make of this cinnamon apple waffle dish. The waffle was good, but again, nothing outstanding. The homemade apple topping was cooked down until it resembled a mushy applesauce. It ended up making the waffle soggy. In fact, it was as light and airy as a damp sponge. Kind of tasted like one as well. I've eaten many hot wings in my day, and I do like these. They're nice and spicy. Flavors comparable to a Hooters or what you'd find in any fast food restaurant. I'm taking off points for not serving them with some sort of blue cheese or ranch for dipping. I would have also liked some celery, carrots, or both on the side. These were your average wings you'd expect to get in any bar and anywhere USA is an app. Again, nothing memorable. I got so excited when I read filet mignon eggs benedict on the menu. Wow, I love filet mignon as well as eggs benedict, so how can they go wrong with this? Well, let me tell you how. The steak was unidentifiable as a filet. It was overcooked to the point of being well done and tough. I think the closer reference to Benedict wasn't to the eggs, but how traitorously they treated this steak. Our trip continued down lackluster lane. In theory, fruit cup sounds so simple, hard to screw up, but somehow they managed to turn them into something mediocre. The description says pineapple, watermelon, and mint. Yum! This sounds light, sweet, natural, and refreshing. However, while there are many fruits in this little cup, as you can see, unfortunately, none of them are ripe, and none of them are even remotely sweet. This was a place we really wanted to like, as it had all the makings of a great experience. But sadly, it just never lived up to our expectations. If I had one piece of advice for Le Cave, get bolder with your seasoning. With the exception of the over-salted hash, everything was bland, and more bland. Having the proper seasoning can make up for a world of other faults. Coming in at number 3, Banana Leaf. Located in the Shanghai Plaza, right in the heart of our Chinatown, Banana Leaf offers Malaysian cuisine, which is a cross between Asian and Indian food. The dishes here are aesthetically a work of art and a sight to behold. The owner, Chef Lee, is very nice, and the atmosphere is pleasing to the eyes and has a tranquil and enjoyable energy. Unfortunately, the food, that's another story. Mediocre at best, and the beautiful appearance far outstrips the taste. The sweet and sour mango chicken is served in a rice cracker basket that's meant to be eaten. The sweet and sour sauce is made from a strong ketchup base, and seemingly little else. Don't get me wrong, I love ketchup. In fact, I made it from scratch in our restaurant. However, ketchup has its time and place, and never belongs in a sweet and sour recipe. The mango and everything else in the dish were identifiable to the eye, but not the tongue, as they were completely obscured by the harsh ketchup taste. You could have dumped a hefty portion of anchovies stuffed with rancid caviar and never known due to the overwhelming ketchup flavor. Who knew that the rice cracker basket was going to be the highlight of this dish? I'd have to say, this may be one of the worst things I've ever eaten. These stir-fried noodles, not the worst noodles I've ever tasted, but again, lack of flavor was astounding. One really has to try to impart so little flavor into a dish. Did they even taste anything before it went out? Or was it supposed to taste this way? The noodles were a good texture, al dente, with a decent chew to them, but this is where the train jumped the track. The calamari was so tough it was nearly inedible. Think, what would it be like to gnaw on large rubber bands? The flavor was very fishy. I was able to doctor it up a bit with the homemade chili sauce they provided. It was a sambal sauce, and was the best thing here. In fact, that sauce would make almost anything taste better. Cashew chicken in a taro bird's nest. Another example of something looking beautiful, but not living up to your visual expectations. The cashews, nicely toasted. They tasted okay, but had kind of an old cashew flavor. They were far from fresh. The sauce was very bland, just an almost plain cornstarch coating. It would make vanilla taste exciting. The chicken was good, nice and fresh. The celery was raw and awful in this dish. And worst of all, the taro bird's nest tasted perhaps like what one imagined a real bird's nest would taste like. Don't get me wrong, for most of you who know me, you know I'm a huge fan of anything taro and normally love it. This taro, though, so gluggy, tasted as if it was partially not cooked. Raw taro is very dangerous to eat, but I assumed they wouldn't serve it to us raw, although they might now if we were to return. So we did eat it reluctantly, but didn't enjoy it very much. The outside of the nest was burnt and had a bitter flavor. To sum up, we were very disappointed after eating here. Nice people, lovely restaurant, but sadly, not a good culinary experience. Coming in at number 2, Mang Felix Kitchen. They have 2 locations in Vegas right now. We visited the one on South Rainbow, and right out of the gate, this review got off on the wrong foot. Their hours of operation are clearly listed online: 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. on Sunday. Apparently, they can't be troubled to spend just a few minutes to get it right, as the hours posted on their front door say 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Fortunately, we got there just a few minutes to 10, and so we didn't have to wait much to get in. But after being seated, we were told they weren't ready to start service because they didn't open till 10. We looked at the phones to check the time. It's 10, so what's the problem? We then proceeded to wait 20 minutes till a server even walked by and could be flagged down. Everyone seemed disheveled and confused. We ordered tea. After 10 minutes, we wondered if they had to travel to China to acquire it. Another 5 minutes, and it finally arrived. Fortunately, it was pretty good, a strong pot of jasmine. We started with the Shanghai chicken. These are pretty ordinary little fried rolls stuffed with ground chicken. I didn't hate them, but by no means were they anything to write home about. It took about 30 minutes for them to get to our table, and while a 30-minute wait had us pretty hungry and willing to adjust nearly anything, it wasn't enough to make up for the disappointment of these rolls. They were very greasy. I suspect, not being fully prepped to open at 10, the fryer oil temperature was probably too low when these were cooked. The accompanying sauce was a plum sauce. It was decent and helped to make the rolls more palatable. Oddly, the best thing on the table was a lemongrass chili oil, which didn't come with the dish at all, but which we had asked for separately because I love chili oil. It was an interesting twist on Chinese chili oil, and I used it throughout the rest of the meal. Well, I had hoped for something a little more memorable for our first dish. Something to make you go, wow, and get you excited about the dishes to come. But this was not to be. Sadly, this dish ended up being the best thing we had. Salt and pepper fish, always one of my favorite dishes, when done right. Unfortunately, the fish here tasted a little past its prime. I love fish when it's fresh. It never has a fishy odor or taste to it. This fish had that unpleasant fish scent and tasted a little off as well. As for the dish itself, noticeably missing in this salt and pepper fish was salt and pepper, not to mention being completely lacking in garlic. It's served with the same sweet and sour sauce they used for the Shanghai chicken rolls. It also comes with steamed rice. Despite being steamed, it was served ice cold. I asked our server if it was meant to be this way. He took it away, and after a very long wait, he brought out to us a new container of rice. It was hot this time, yes, but stuck together in one giant clump, making it difficult to pry apart and eat. possibly better used as a weapon. The batter on the fish was stodgy and thick. It soaked up a lot of grease, which made it feel very heavy. This was not a good rendition of salt and pepper fish. Ah, adobo. Good old reliable adobo. Kinda hard to screw up. Chunks of pork butt or shoulder braised in soy and vinegar. And after the disappointing rolls we started with, this was probably the next best thing we ordered. It's very similar to a stew with a rich brown gravy and hearty, savory notes. The rice this time came piping hot and edible. However, there was nothing that made this a standout dish. Nothing to scream at, and I'd probably never order it again. This dish, also known as lechon, is one of my favorite ways to have pork. I love pork belly and used to sell a ton of it in our restaurant with a crispy top and a sweet Cumberland sauce. So I know a thing or two about pork belly. First of all, this one smelled a little old when it hit the table. There are a few things worse than gamey, past its prime pork. If you closed your eyes and didn't inhale, it tasted alright, but the whole time I ate it, I was hoping I wasn't going to get sick from it later. The peanut sauce helped to even out the flavor and definitely made it taste better. The soy-based sauce didn't do much for the dish, but then few things would have been able to mask the off-putting aroma. Pancit bami is usually one of my favorite noodle dishes. Well, it turns out I saved the worst for last. Either the stench of old fish sauce that had turned, or rancid shrimp paste, made this inedible and had us thinking the dish should be called rancid bami. Maybe this lime will help. Nope, afraid not. Nothing takes away the smell or the taste of the old fish sauce. The chicken in here is like rubber, and the cold eggs and shrimp very unappetizing. We told them we were dissatisfied with this dish and couldn't eat it, and that it tasted as though something was wrong with it. They never offered to bring us something else, to take it off our check, or even to say they were sorry. It was a total disaster. So, all in all, this was an experience I'd not wish to repeat. It seemed a poorly run place, not ready to serve when they opened, confusion among the employees, can't even get steamed rice correct, food which takes way too long to create, and lots of other little things such as dusty surroundings, listing the wrong hours of operation online, and light fixtures with missing bulbs. I wouldn't recommend this Mang Felix kitchen to friend or foe. Okay, drum roll please. The bottom of the barrel. Worst of the worst. The incredible, inedible. It's sushi. As you know, we're always honest when it comes to our opinions. Sometimes it's disheartening when the entire review is negative. We know how hard it is to run a restaurant, and how ultimately it's someone's dream you're bashing with a bad review. But we also can't ignore our experiences and feel we'd be doing you all a disservice if we didn't warn you of places we felt were bad. It has a Yelp rating of 4.4 with 2,207 reviews. As I've said before though, while I enjoy reading Yelp reviews, I don't give them much credence. And this is a perfect example why. The Yelpers have it all wrong. We opted for the Ace lunch. Typically, we get the higher priced Ace option, but It's Sushi doesn't have some of the better items you usually see on the typical better Ace option, such as uni or soft-shell crab. The food at It's Sushi was so bad, I was baffled why they had so many good Yelps, and why they were so crowded. We were there for lunch on a Wednesday, and it was about 75% full. I couldn't believe they weren't all getting up and walking out. This is probably the worst sushi either one of us has ever eaten. It all has a strange, stale taste. We started with a shrimp skewer. It was a joke. When they first arrived at the table, all I could think was, my God, these shrimp are so tiny. Well, after I tasted it, I was elated that they were so small. It tasted as though the guy marinating them had accidentally slipped them into the little red buckets they used to wipe down the tables. The texture was rubbery, and it was hard to swallow. Again, not being able to swallow them made it easier to spit them out into my napkin. It wasn't to be the first time I was going to be doing that today. These nachos, also pretty bad. I like the idea of Asian nachos, but I think after they trimmed the fish, they accidentally threw out the fish and kept the trimmings. I kept waiting to see a hook or bait or a fin in this plate.
Any one of those items would have been an improvement.
The spider roll is a nightmare. You can't see it in the video, but we both took one bite and immediately spit it out into our napkins. We had asked for no imitation crab, and as you can see, it was loaded with it. The imitation crab here is the worst I've ever tasted, and was downright sickening. It reminded me of the type of tuna salad that's just swimming in mayo. The menu also said there would be soft shell crab involved, but all we could find was a tiny piece of shrimp tempura. Maybe the soft shell crab involvement was by offering the chef moral support.
You're a great chef, and gosh darn it, people like you.
The salmon lover's roll had a strange taste. The salmon wasn't fresh, it was very fishy. I had to spit it out. Usually I describe the spices in the dish, but the foul taste of the rancid salmon overpowered any spices this roll may have contained. The carpaccio was terrible. Each one tasted stranger than the next. You may not be able to see it, but they were sliced thinner than mosquito wings. That turned out to be a good thing, as this meant there was much less of it to eat. The oysters were not fresh, and the sauce on them didn't help them go down any easier. These are some of the worst oysters I've ever eaten. Now, there were a few decent things, but even these were nothing to write home about. The shrimp tempura and the onion rings weren't offensive, and the spicy tuna roll was halfway decent. Finally, the ice cream was pretty good, probably because they didn't make it. This entire experience was very off-putting. We were so excited to try It's Sushi, as we'd heard many good things about it. We went in with a very positive frame of mind, but came out never wanting sushi again. From start to finish, it was horrible. As usual, we had a fully prepared list of items we wanted to try. As is not usual, we made it only halfway through the list when we decided to pull the plug on our meal. When we don't have a great experience the first time at a restaurant, we typically give it a second go. However, there is no way I would ever go back. On the way out to the car, I looked up at the huge It's Sushi sign and thought, it's a good thing they're telling me it's sushi, otherwise I would never have known. Well, that's the list. Take it for what it's worth, and if you wish, take a risk and try one of these places. But you've been forewarned. Needless to say, no maybes about it. You won't see us there, and do not tell them Let's Eat Vegas sent you. I know we're all guilty of watching YouTube videos and not participating. As a reminder, please like, comment, subscribe, or even become a VIP member. It means a lot to us, and it helps us grow and to bring you more reviews. Until we eat again, bon appetit!